Welcome. My name is Gerard and I'm with SKIM for about 7 years. I'm Chief Innovation Officer for the company and partner in it. And one of the things I'm working on is actually mobile conjoint. What we all know is, of course, mobile is a trend in market research in general. And we're not claiming to be an expert in anything that has to do with mobile, but we do claim that we're a choice modeling kind of expert, and that we know how to apply that knowledge in the mobile world and vice versa. What we want to do today is show you that we start to look into, and we find that actually mobile choice-based conjoint can be, under certain conditions, a valid alternative to regular online conjoint, as well as copy-based conjoint, if you would do that, for example, in the emerging markets. So let me see the next slide, if it shows up. Yes, there you go. So basically, where we're coming from is that we think that for mobile surveys, it's time to act. What we see in our business and what we see when talking to our fieldwork partners is that people, consumers, and actually also in B2B, increasingly take surveys on mobile platforms. Now, we always have to make, what we see is, if we talk to various folks and if I listen at conferences, what we see is that about 10 to 15% of the general population, of the consumer population, starts to take surveys on a mobile platform, and that includes smartphones as well as tablets, which makes us realize that we actually better be prepared for that. And so far, we basically take that simply as a screening question, like screening as in, what do we do with these people? Because we need to make a decision. What we know is, if you take a regular survey on a mobile platform, that survey, if it isn't prepared for that, can actually look pretty bad. So what the decision that we have to make is, if we see people coming in on a mobile platform, like on a tablet or even worse, so to say, on a smartphone, we have to make a decision whether to screen them in or screen them out. But when doing that, we have to take a few things into account. If we screen them in, we need to make a decision if we allow them to move forward using the standard survey design, or if we basically allow them and have prepared for them a mobile survey design, something that works better on a mobile platform. Now, that, of course, is an investment decision, and in order to do that, you must really expect many people to take that survey on a mobile platform. Otherwise, it's not worth the investment. So that's something to always keep in mind. The other thing that we may do is simply say, well, we can't be bothered with these people who want to take the survey on a mobile platform, and we screen them out. Now, that's still fine. That could be fine if that's just 10 to 15% of the people coming into the survey. But if that number goes up, it may result in a very biased sample, because the characteristics of those taking a survey on a mobile platform, on a smartphone or even on a tablet, may be very different from those who taking it on a normal laptop or a desktop computer. So one of the considerations that we have to do to take into account is if it will result in a biased sample. But if you then continue to think about that, what we're looking at actually is a paradigm shift of that. Over time, it may well be that the participation from a mobile platform goes up so much that we are looking at a landslide of the same magnitude of when we moved from copy, from personal interviewing in central locations, for example, or door-to-door, to online surveys. We may look at a very same paradigm shift. So we really be better prepared for mobile surveys and really act that under the assumption that people will over time take surveys more and more on a mobile platform, and we should migrate our own systems and our own thinking to going mobile only. So that's what we're starting to do at SKIM, and then in our own context. And first of all, if you look at many presentations that you see at conferences, it is usually about the real estate of the mobile platform, like doing whatever you do on a regular computer or a laptop, and doing the very same thing but then better or adapted on a mobile platform. So that's what's shown on this page. Basically, don't just take any question that you run on a normal platform and take it to a mobile platform because it doesn't look good. It should take into account the specific characteristics of a mobile device. We think that that's just an entry ticket into this business. We think you should go beyond that, and that's why we start to think beyond just thinking about formatting questions or sampling questions, and we start to prepare methodologies or very methodological way of thinking to the mobile platform. And one of the things that, for example, we started to think about is if we can turn that into a value proposition. And one of the value propositions that we're looking into is if we can do a CBC environment that we now call a 3x3 mobile CBC environment, and do that really to adapt to the shorter attention span of the mobile user. Because one thing we believe, it's not just the fact that people are taking surveys on a mobile, but also that they take that survey on a mobile when they're on the bus or on a train or actually in traffic on their way home. So by that, we think we should actually not just think about mobile, but the fact that we should adapt to the shorter attention span of the mobile user, the person who is on the move and who may not be willing to spend a lot of time on taking your survey, but is very willing to answer a few very straightforward and clear questions. So what we do in our CBC environment is adapting to the shorter attention span of this mobile user by reducing the number of choice tasks and the number of choice tasks in every study. So the value proposition of what we now call the 3x3 MCBC exercise would be that you do, for example, just do 3 choice tasks as opposed to the 12 to 15 choice tasks that we do in any common CBC exercise, and only have 3 options in every choice task each, instead of the 4, 5, 6, any number of options that we offer in any choice task. And by that, offer the opportunity for the respondent to complete the exercise within, let's say, 60 seconds, although we may consider that speed, but like in a limited amount of time, so that we extract really valuable information from the respondent in a very limited amount of time, and that we basically on our end do everything to accommodate the respondent and be able to give valid input within the 60 seconds that this person is willing to spare with us. So in order to do that, we started to cut down the number of choice tasks and the number of options per choice task to 3 and 3. And we started to test if we were to do that, if we were to deliver the same valid results as a traditional CBC exercise, so by comparing the 3x3 format on a mobile with a similar kind of study, or the same study, the study specifications, with the exception is that we would do the same, the 12 choice tasks with like 5 or 6 options per choice task each. So that would be the benchmark. Now when we did that, and I will go through the results shortly after this, is that we have good news, as in that the main absolute error of the share predictions, the main output of the CBC exercise, is pretty good, as in that it is within a bandwidth of 4% of the results of the traditional CBC exercise, as long as we have the correct sample size in the study. So, which means that for the studies that we've investigated to test this, to pilot this, is that the overall results, conclusions, and recommendations stay the same, and the metrics stays essentially within a certain range, within an acceptable range. The bad news is, and you may consider it not bad news, is that it was impossible to us to reduce the number of choice tasks and the number of options per task to fewer than the 3x3 platform. Why do I say that's bad news? Well, actually, if you think about it, what was for us the challenge is if in CBC we could just ask 2 questions, like some sort of a base case situation, what would you do in a situation X, and what would you do in another situation that we change some of the parameters that is in situation X. So like a point of departure, and a deviation from the point of choice tasks with fewer options. That is impossible, but at least we should be happy with the 3x3 platform that we have today. Now, another piece of bad news you may say is, because we ask fewer questions of every respondent, we need to bump up the number of respondents that we have in our sample. And what we see is that something like a 3x3 MCBC exercise really requires a very large sample size. And as a rule of thumb, the sample size is tied to the number of parameters to be estimated in the study, and the number of parameters is determined by the number of attributes and levels in the study. So basically, if normally we would recommend the minimal sample size of about 200 for any conjoint study, for a standard conjoint study, so to say, the sample size now has to go up, has to be bumped up according to the number of parameters that we have to estimate. And for example, if the number of parameters is 12, which means that we could have 3 attributes with 4 levels each, then the sample size needs to be double compared with the 200 of a standard conjoint study on a common platform, on the online platform. If we have 16 parameters, the 4x4, 4 attributes at 4 levels, it basically quadruples. And it does go disproportionately up at 25 attributes at 4 levels, 1200, 25 parameters, 5x5, 1600. And that's also where we want to stop, and that's just a rule of thumb, and there's no true validated statistical rule under it. But we also believe that 5x5 is the maximum number that you basically can put on a mobile device if we use the 3x3. So you basically have 5 attributes at 5 levels each, and then you need a sample size of 1600. Now you may think, well, that's not bad because sample is cheap. But we do suffer in certain markets, not so much in the United States, where sample is easily available, even if you look at people who are willing to take a survey on a mobile device. But when testing this across various markets, for example in emerging markets in Southeast Asia or in Africa, those markets where mobile really truly offers an opportunity, because computer-assisted personal interviewing in central location or door-to-door is really expensive, and online hasn't really taken off yet. And so we may basically go from copy kind of research straight into mobile. Well, it's still very hard to find these sample numbers in those markets, especially if the selection criteria for a sample are pretty strict. So we have to keep that. The other thing is true for reduced 3x3 kind of mobile CBC, is that the number of observations that we collect of every respondent is much lower, is much less than in a traditional where we have 16 or 10 to 12 or 16 tasks with more than 3 options each, products each. The number of observations that we have of every respondent is really low, which basically means that that's the reason why we have to collect more. We have to have a bigger sample, but also basically a smarter research design that maximizes the amount of information that we extract from every respondent. And in order to do that is that there are even stricter requirements to the quality and the efficiency and actually the marketing management efficiency of our research designs. Basically, what we say is that you really have to build manual research designs or have the quality metrics in place to really look at the quality of your research design, to have, for example, a frequency balanced research design, which says that every combination of 2 attributes and the levels should be represented well by all research designs in the study, and we typically include like from 50 to 70 to 100 different research designs in every study, which basically are distributed among the sample size of 400, 800, 1200, and 1600. And I think that's even more important, that we should have prior knowledge, market knowledge, and include that in our study designs. For example, if you would do a pricing study into a market that you know reasonably well, you should take into account the market shares of the products in that market and include that knowledge in design generation, that you do include larger as well as smaller SKUs well in the way you build your research design. So you have to depend more on your prior knowledge of that market. So a lot of the quality of the study depends on the quality of the research design going in. So moving on to the empirical validation that we did, and we continue to empirically validate is, for example, one of the things that we do is for client studies that we currently run. Usually with the permission of a client, we run a lag in parallel in which we also test what happens if we adapt the research design to the platform. Of course, there's certain requirements, but that's an investment that we make on our end to prepare ourselves for the new reality of mobile. So how do we know if MCVC is valid using a 3x3 research design? Basically, we validate it, that's what you just said, and basically what we do is see the convergent validity, the extent to which the studies run on a normal online platform and run online on a mobile platform deliver the very same results. Basically, that's what we do, and also see how it varies by sample size, and I've already shared with you that bigger samples are necessary. And it shows that at increasing sample sizes, mobile CVC is, under certain conditions, a good approximation of common CVC run on traditional platforms. That's the statement that we make. For example, the results that we're sharing with you today is just a study into painkillers and batteries, something that we run outside of our client projects as our own investment in validation. And we answer the question what the validity of mobile CVC would be at various sample sizes if we compare it with the same conjoint study at the traditional way with the sample size of 200. So basically what you see here is painkillers as well as batteries. You see here that we have 5 attributes on the left for the painkillers and 3 attributes on the right, and each come with 3 to 5 level each, so the number of parameters is 16 and 12. And this goes back to what we said earlier, that we know something about the relation between validity and the number of parameters that we have to estimate, and we stay within the constraints. Basically what we see when we validate it is that if we compare it to the benchmark and we look at a simple metric like attribute importances, that the attribute importances that we see, for example for painkillers compared with the benchmark traditional conjoint at the traditional platform at 200 is pretty much the same as the mobile attribute importances. And I won't bore you with more results, but this is just what it also looks in if we look at other metrics. And basically what it means is that, yeah, there will be variations, but they are within an acceptable range, and results are the same in the same way that they will not result in different conclusions and recommendations. What we also see, if we look at mean absolute error values between if we do our preference share estimates and we run our scenarios, and that's how we estimate this, running the scenarios of the value share, the volume share, the preference share of products under various scenarios, and we compare the sample sizes in the mobile lag with the preference shares that we obtained from the traditional way of doing the conjoint at NS200, you basically see that the convergent validity becomes better at larger sample sizes, but there is a cutoff point in, for example, in painkillers, the study with the higher number of parameters, and the number of parameters to be estimated was 16, and basically that cutoff point was here at NS400. And this is also where a rule of thumb comes from when we do the estimation of the validity in different studies at different sample sizes. We do see that there is always some sort of a cutoff point in convergent validity, and that cutoff point varies by the number of parameters to be estimated. It was much easier for the batteries with just 12 parameters. It kicked in at 400 compared to a sample of 200 on a traditional platform if the number of parameters to be estimated was 16. And if we continue to repeat this validation and look for convergent validity, this is what we need to understand in the future of how valid our 3x3 kind of exercises are compared to the way we traditionally run our studies. So the conditions to make this work is, and from here on out, I basically present this to basically manage your expectations. Because now you may say, oh, that's good news. So from here on out, I can run any study and anything that we want to do also on a mobile platform. And if the CPI for studies goes up, or the speed of delivering the studies goes up, goes down, the results will come in faster because we run it on a mobile platform, I will caution you that there will be certain conditions that they have to apply. So basically, the conditions to make something like 3x3 MCBC work is that you have to make the most of the data that you're collecting, because we just collect a few data per respondent. So every display of product profiles in a choice task is valuable. And so far, we believe that we should not waste it on prohibitions or alternative specific research designs. And that is because we cannot tolerate any reduction in the de-efficiency value in the quality of our research designs, because we really have to extract as much information from every respondent that we can. And I believe that this is not just a matter of time, and that it will become better in the future when we have more experience, because I think that we will always face this situation that if we just have the opportunity to collect a few data points of every respondent, that we have to extract as much information from the respondent as possible. So this may never really go away. That's also why we now believe that we can apply MCBC only in some standard situations, and that we are not very willing to go down the path of applying it in situations where there are many prohibitions, utility balanced research designs, alternative specific research designs, basically any kind of research design where you have to compromise on the de-efficiency value in order to accommodate something that is relevant to the business and to marketing. So, standard. The other thing that we will apply is that we will have to maximize the real estate. And what we do is work with interaction designers to really make sure that we maximize the use of the real estate we have on the mobile platform, to basically put in as much information, meaningful information as possible. That's, for example, we don't have space for large amounts of information. That's where the rule comes from, that we don't have space for more than 5 attributes. And of course, we need to dedicate as much information as possible to the survey itself, and as minimal information as possible to, for example, advertising the name of a research firm or any progress information that is going on in the survey. Just focus it on the information at hand that the respondent needs to make a choice. Text should be succinct, for example, keywords only, no complex descriptions, and pictures pictures should be icons or schematic. And that is because we don't really control yet the quality of pictures on the mobile platform from a data traffic point of view, and we also don't know yet how we should deal with, for example, including layers of information going back and forth between seeing things in the Zoom environment and taking it back to the main screen of the survey. So, you know, these are the really things that we for now should take into account. Which also means, I go back, so what is then the word of caution, that, yeah, then you also have to think about the applications, and it should be careful with package or ad testing. So what we do is really think about interaction designs, and in the next few slides are a few examples of the screens that we've used in this study, and if you follow the tiny URL that's on the bottom of the screen, you will see it for yourself. So those were the example screens from that we used in this study, also that we do the same thing in telecom. We also work on validating MaxDiff environments that we, for example, use in our semantics tool, our claims analysis and investigation tools. to test claims and benefit statements. And what we also start to do is actually look into replicating online shopping environments like the Amazon.com or .co.uk, the UK version of Amazon, on a mobile platform. So basically copy and build that and implement this shopping environment to basically do the same thing in our MaxDiff or CBC environments. What you see here is something that we basically replicated for our own piloting purposes. Looking at the Amazon site, looking at how it looks and how we can take that look and feel and start implementing that in our own CBC environments. And that's what you're looking at now. This is an actual survey, a pilot survey that we basically do that replicates what an Amazon application in CBC would look like, including shopping carts, including the interaction design of going back and forth between screens, that the way Amazon would do that. So yeah, and you see here that it's product rankings and search results, rating and reviews are all attributes and levels. Pricing and promotions are attributes with levels. Product descriptions and sizes are attributes and levels. There will be additional information like images and icon, product callouts and shipping options. Everything here is meaningful information that we also extract from the Amazon site, but also use as elements in the task designs of our CBC exercises. So this is another extension of the thinking behind mobile CBC. So to conclude, and I see it's about time that I conclude, is that we think that MCBC is a valid addition. And there are certain things that you have to do and certain things that you have to avoid doing. What we should suggest that you do is that you take market knowledge into account when building the study. It's mandatory that we use a larger sample and that we have to think about the CPI for mobile studies. For now, use succinct text and iconized visuals and have 5 attributes at 5 levels max. And that's just to say that the amount of information that we can process is less. Don't use it yet for large CBCs. There's a lot of validation that we'll still have to do. Include research design restrictions, no alternative specific, no prohibitions, no utility balanced. And for now, we wouldn't use it for package design or ad or concept work, because we first have to really work on capturing the imagery well and the visuals well on a mobile platform and see how that works with data traffic and layers in the research design. So we will continue to validate this. We will continue to work on improving user interface designs to mobile CBCs. And actually, because it's also about the limited attention span of our respondents, of the consumer base, we will translate any learning that we have here to any CBC, because we may start to see the same pattern in any kind of survey that we run. And with that, Abby, I give the floor back to you to come up with the questions.
Thank you so much, Gerard. I think we are going to go ahead and skip over questions since we're right at the time. But again, if anyone does have any questions, you see Gerard's details right there. You see also my details if you have any questions about slides or getting the presentation. I thank you all for joining us again today, and please be sure to visit skimgroup.com/webinars. There you can get the slides from today, and you'll also be able to get a recording of today's session. We'll also be sending this to you by email. You will get a message from me on Monday with all of this, so you don't have to remember this yourself. And you can also sign up there for our final spring webinar, which is taking place in 2 weeks on June 20th. And we're going to be discussing high potential global claims, so sharing region-specific tips on how to build claims that are effective in every region. So on behalf of Gerard and myself,